Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Goose Reviews. Today I'm going to be talking about Monument's brand new album, In Stasis. It's their fourth studio album, not including their EP, and it features a brand new vocalist. So let's jump right into this. Um, so far, I've listened to it about 3 times, and I'd have to say it's one of their more well rounded albums that they've produced. Um, John Brown is still bringing the heat on the rhythmic guitars. They have some really interesting features on this album as well. Mick Gordon, which is fastly becoming one of the best guitarists, in my opinion, out there. Uh, they have 2 tracks featuring him, 1 track featuring Spencer Sotelo, and the first track of the album actually featuring their previous vocalist from the last album, Nima Ascari, I think is his name. And I'll say the features definitely brought some interesting flavors to Monument's sound. Um, I do think the album departs a little bit from their sound previously. They, in my opinion, came with a very heavy Egyptian themed sort of sound, if that's a way to describe it. It had this sort of wow, wow, wow. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but uh, I mean, just very Egyptian sounding elements to it. And I feel like this album is a little bit more of a clean metal sound. Uh, it kind of brings me to the vocals again because the vocals are at first were a big detractor from the album to me. I felt like it was a little bit too clean, a little bit too boy bandish. Um, but by the second or third listen, I really got very comfortable with the vocals, and it even kind of reminded me of a sentiment that I had for a while with metal, and that was that bands should really not be scared to incorporate more clean vocals into their metal. And that's not to say that screaming in metal is a bad thing. There'll always be those subgenres and genres, but clean vocals can really make it a lot more accessible to other crowds of people that aren't necessarily into traditional metal. And in my opinion, it's just the more people that you have listening to metal, the more people you'll have playing metal. The more people you have playing metal, the more creative and interesting, diverse sounds that you'll get. And you'll always have those other genres. But in my opinion, uh, incorporating some clean vocals never hurts a metal album unless it's just too much. And I feel like they hit a good mark with this. It was getting a little bit on the side of being too much, but upon re-listening to the album, it definitely the vocals went from being a detractor to a standout, which kind of brings me to my top 3 tracks from the album, which I've just kind of started this system. So each album that I review, I do my top 3 tracks from the album and a little bit of a breakdown of each one of them. So the first track that um, is in my top 3, my number 3 track would be "No One Will Teach You," and I think it's "No One Will Teach You Anything," but I'm not sure, and I don't want to pick up my phone and look, but I'm pretty sure that's the name of the track. Which was very interesting. Like I said, it featured Nima Ascari, which, in my opinion, it was an interesting choice to have your previous vocalist now on a track with your new vocalist, and it's the first track. So, in my opinion, it's like a very tasteful transition. In a way, they're kind of letting people know there's no bad blood in the water. um, I think Nima adds that interesting Egyptian flavor that's not necessarily in the rest of the album. Uh, and it adds a very interesting contrast to our new vocalist and lets us know exactly the difference of sound we're about to get for the rest of the album. Um, that being said, my second favorite track from the album would have to be False Providence. And I know a lot of people heard this track for a while before the album came out. But me personally, I kind of wanted to wait for the album because I'd already heard so many tracks that were supposed to be on the album, and I think one of them didn't make it. But I mean, I heard Lavos, I heard Dead Nest, and I heard Cardinal Red already. And I'm like, you know what? At the time, I didn't know that Dead Nest wasn't going to be on it either. Anyways, so I was like, I've already heard 3 tracks from this album. I'm just going to wait for False Providence. And I'm kind of glad I did because to me, the context of an album really gives a singular track character. In my opinion, there's a reason why artists decide to make a full album rather than just single tracks and release single tracks here and there, which I know is becoming a popular model, and I hope it doesn't stick personally because to me, when you get that full story, it just tells you so much more about the track and just the textures and the themes of the track. It allows you to pick up on the energy so much more. So, but anyways, there's actually the section. I think it's nearing the end. It's about 3/4 of the way through the song. And there's what I've kind of I don't know if this is an actual term in music, but there's this breakthrough section where because like in metal, there's these breakdown sections where it just everything slows down, breaks down, gets super heavy for a minute. Well, to me, a breakthrough section is like when everything lifts up and it creates this uh, this rising sound, and like everything is just kind of finally breaking through. And there's one of these sections in the song, and it's such a good inspirational sound to it. It makes you feel like you want to go climb a mountain, you want to go run up a hill. I don't know, just very inspiring sound, and then the vocals combined with it. I think this was the first track that really opened up my palette to this kind of sound that they're making on this album with all the cleans and stuff. Uh, which leads me into my top track from the album, which I would have to say is Sumerian. And primarily for the vocals. Uh, I've already said it a few times, but the vocals was a big detracting thing, and this song right here is, if False Providence opened up my palette, this is what really capitalized on it and made me really come around to the sound of the album. Because the breakthrough section of this is like the False Providence breakthrough, but I mean just times like 100. I mean, the way that the instrumentals combine with the vocals too is just expertly done. True professionals in the studio, you can tell just because of the depth of soundscape that you get in these songs. Excuse me. And I don't know, man. It's just the way that and the lyrical content of this song is really what sells me on it. Because you could tell this person has just gone through some traumatic experience and they're finally coming out of the other side and they're deciding, hey, I want to take my life back. Even if they're still covered in darkness and they still have all of this trauma attached to them, they're still like, I feel like I need to find myself and find a way back to the way I used to be and the way that things used to be and get back to happiness basically and not succumb to suicidal thoughts and suicidal tendencies. So, in my opinion, the lyrical content, the way that the vocals accent or not even accent but just amplify that lyrical content, and then the way the instrumentals accent and complement the vocals and the lyrics, it to me is a perfect encapsulation of this new sound that they've created, and as well as a distillation of a lot of their previous sounds. and just really heavy in the beginning. It starts kind of like heavy with those clean vocals still in there, so you get that really good contrast. But it's almost like the person's still going through this trauma, and then eventually, once that breakthrough section hits, it's like they're finally like, "No, I'm gonna get out of this trauma one way or another." So, um, yeah, songs that are real inspirational and have really good lyrics like that, to me, are one of the biggest selling points of the album. Um, so I mentioned that's my top three tracks. I mentioned that Mick Gordon has a few features in this. I mentioned one of the tracks that he has a feature in False Providence. I feel like he doesn't shine necessarily as much in that one as he does Cardinal Red. Um, I feel like Cardinal Red is a little bit more of that Lovecraftian sound. Uh, it has so much of that like that it's just like I just in my imagination with that song I just see all these like octopus like tentacles, like squid tentacles like coming out of like purple energy portals and like taking over some kind of sky or land or some shit. Like just total Lovecraftian energy I get from all of those Mick Gordon songs. He takes that like almost Egyptian sound and turns it into like a Lovecraftian sound. So, which the way I describe things can be kind of visual, kind of different than just describing it as a sound. So, excuse me for that, but I do think it adds sometimes an interesting, unique perspective on the subject. Um, Let me see my notes real quick and see if I'm forgetting anything. No, I think I've pretty much hit most of the points that I wanted to with this review. Like I said, I mean it's a shorter one, but it's packed. It's got way more killer than filler. A lot of good standout features. Spencer Sotelo is another feature I think I forgot to elaborate on, but his they have really interesting vocal contrast between the two of them because Spencer's so much more of that aggressive, in your face kind of screaming, and you can tell that this new vocalist. I wish I could remember his name, but this new vocalist, you can tell he's a little bit more somber, a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more emotion in the growls and the screams and the cleans. So Spencer, I think, adds a very interesting contrast to that, and gives us a little bit of a refreshing vocal switch up there in the middle of the album. Um, but yeah, I think that's everything. Overall, I think the album's really great, and if let's see, so I've been trying to create a ranking system. I don't know how much this is gonna stick, but I'm kind of doing like S plus, S minus, A plus, A minus, and etc. And then with the S and the A in between the plus and minus. But anyways, I'd have to put this album as an A tier album. It's not quite on that S tier level. There was a few detracting things, and I feel like some of the songs might become forgettable after a while. I know Cardinal Red and False Providence and Sumerian are all gonna be like mainstream tracks that'll sit around for a little while, but um, yeah, there was a few things in the album that could have been slightly better and put it on that S tier level, but uh, I think for now an A tier is a good spot to put it in. Maybe when we do some listen throughs on the album later, that tier might change, but for now, we're going to let it sit right there at A. Anyways, what do you guys think about the album? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and cut me some slack here. I'm trying. Trying to get this channel off the ground a little bit. If you can tell, my set went from just being my clothes in the background to now I have a blanket hanging in the background. So much better, right? I'm working on it slowly, but anyways, peace and balance, guys.